Hello and welcome to Mr. C History. Now I'm on a very interesting journey today. I'm here in western Somerset, Porlock specifically. Porlock Bay is around there, Selworthy Beacon, Wales over in the mist there. And I'm going to go on a walk to a church and I'm going to look into the myth, or is it not, that Jesus came to Britain. So what is this story all about? Well, I think I should perhaps start with a poem, a very famous poem, which goes, "And did those feet in ancient time walk upon England's mountains green?" Now, I'm sure you may have heard of that as the opening lines to the hymn Jerusalem, but it was originally a poem by a man called William Blake, and he was inspired by the story or the myth, or was it true, and what we're exploring, the idea that as a young person, Jesus Christ came to Britain, came to England, and thus did those feet in ancient time walk here in England, and specifically this part of Somerset we're going to talk about. Now, various different places have claimed this. So Cornwall, definitely Cornwall's got a strong connection that Jesus came here, but the Somerset connection is Glastonbury Abbey. And it was founded on that site that says that Jesus came here, and there are other things we'll talk about. But he had to enter Britain somewhere along the coast. Could it be Burnham and Crouch, or could it be here in Somerset? And so I'm going to head to the little tiny hamlet, not even a village, of Culbone to explore that a bit more. Just at the start of the walk, actually, interestingly, is what the remains of Ashley Court, which is a really grand old manor house, and indeed it was the home of Ada Lovelace. Ada Lovelace is seen as one of the sort of originators of computing. She was an amazing mathematician, and Charles Babbage often gets credited with his analytical machine, but he was more just an engineer. The actual rubrics and mathematics around it, the person who sort of could see the potential of it all, was Ada Lovelace, and she lived here in the 1830s, 1840s. It went to ruin about 100 or so, maybe even more longer ago, and it's now being sort of consumed. There's bits all over the place, sort of tunnels, and there's a turret as well at some point, but it's been consumed. And you can see here this rainforest element, the lichen and etc. The moss is consuming. It's like Angkor Wat or something. The ancient ruin being eaten by the jungle. This whole area around Porlock and just on the edge of Exmoor is actually a rainforest. It's a temperate rainforest, and the definition of that is actually not really the trees or a lot of rain, which of course it does get. It's more that rainforests have things growing on things growing on the floor, lots of sort of moss and lichen on the trees. That is a rainforest, and here we are, right in the middle of this temperate rainforest. Finally, emerging out of the jungle is Culbone Church and the village of Culbone. Let's go have a look. Hidden in the trees here at Culbone is St Bueno's Church, named after the Welsh Saint Bueno. I think in Anglicised we call it Bono. This is the smallest church in England. It is tiny here, and it's amazing really. If you go inside there, it's very dark. They've got these tiny little chairs, a few sort of notices. You could probably barely fit 20 people in there, really. It's ancient. In fact, there's been a church here pre-Norman. But what about Culbone itself? Well, it's a tiny village here. There's a couple of houses, and as I say, there's this church here as well. 2 miles from Porlock Weir, where you cannot really any access. I think there may be a track somehow that a car can get down, but there's a few cars here, but they don't seem to have ever gone back up again. So obviously it's not really a place you can drive to. Yet there are still services here, and the church is still a church in that sense. But it really is beautiful. Amazing about this village as well, for several years it was used as a prison for French soldiers because it seemed so hard to escape. The only way in really was the sea just down there. And also it was used as well as a leper colony, or a sort of plague colony as well, for people with these diseases they couldn't escape. So it's a hidden world deep within this rainforest. Now, what is the connection with Jesus? Well, this is one of the places where it's suggested that on their trip to Glastonbury they landed. It's either here or Burnham on Crouch. This was seen as maybe a safer haven. As it came in, obviously we're further away from Glastonbury, but a safer place to store the boats down at the bottom of the sea there, which now you cannot access that part of the sea. So did Jesus enter here, and is that why this rather special church is here? Who knows? But what is the historical basis of this and the evidence? Okay, well, the time we're talking about is known as the lost years of Jesus, or the secret years, and that's between the age of 12 and the age of 29, where there is no documented evidence at all of what Jesus was up to. So obviously people are filling the gaps a bit, and it could well be in that time he came here to England. Now, why would he come to England? Well, that's because of his father Joseph and his uncle Joseph of Arimathea. Now, some ancient texts say that Joseph of Arimathea was the Virgin Mary's uncle, and therefore by extension Jesus as well. And he was a very wealthy man in the area of Judea. And part of his wealth came from metals, from trading in metals, using things with metals, etc. Specifically, tin. And at the time, 2,000 years ago, one of the main sources of the tin in all of the world, some of the best quality tin, was Cornwall, England, or southwest of England. And there is evidence, there are objects and coins from Jesus' time in Nazareth and that area, Judea, that were made from tin from Cornwall. And there are boats that are documented by the Phoenicians leaving the port, I think it's Tyre, sort of modern day Lebanon, Israel kind of area. There are boats that went from there to Cornwall to collect the tin and come back. So it is not unheard of, it is not, and it is perfectly true that people from that part of the world traded here with England. The step further is that Joseph of Arimathea asked his son-in-law Joseph, and this potentially young Jesus, I say between the age of 12 and 29, to go to Cornwall, to England, to here in Somerset, to come and collect and get some of the tin. This is the basis of that story. Another tantalising piece of information is that in the 6th century, when St. Augustine was sent to England from Europe to preach Christianity, he said when he came to the west of England, there were already Christians here. Why would that be? A break in the rainforest trees here sees the Bristol Channel, and is this where Jesus and Joseph would have come up in their tin trading boats? Glastonbury is over on that way, Cornwall's down there, Culbone's just on there. Maybe they did. Back at Porlock Weir to finish the walk, down right by the beach here. Now, so what's my thoughts on that question? Did those feet in ancient time walk along here? I think no, I'm afraid. There's just not enough evidence for me. I don't think. It's possible, of course, tin merchants did come along, but I think the key question is why? Why would Joseph bring his sort of potentially stroppy teenage son all of this way just for a bit of tin? So not so sure, and just the evidence of it just isn't there. There's claims of shipwrecks and connections, etc. But no, I don't think so. I also think we've got a bit of cross-mytholizing going on here, because there's the famous myth as well that Joseph of Arimathea came to England. He's the one who took Jesus off the cross and all that stuff, and a lot of the artifacts associated with Jesus were through him. The belief is he took the Holy Grail and took it to Glastonbury. Again, a myth, but maybe this is almost a tangent myth from that, maybe. And the final thing, obviously, to add really is that all that mytholizing was happening in the Victorian times, when Britain wanted to show its exceptionalism, this idea of spreading the Christian message. So any association they could get with Jesus Christ would be very good. And of course that poem goes on for them, and did they build Jerusalem here? So very profound stuff. Anyway, let me know what you think. I'm not a believer in this, I'm afraid. It's very interesting, and I like it. I mean, it's beautiful around here, and you can see why those of religious persuasion would maybe associate this in a spiritual way. It is absolutely stunning here, so fine. But let me know what you think, as always, and I hope you enjoyed that. Please don't forget to hit subscribe. I'll see you on the next one.